Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today with you in my very first webinar with DoorLoop. And today we're going to be going over multifamily marketing must haves with yours truly. So I'm so happy you're here. My colleagues Maria or Mo will be in the chat responding to you. So make sure you jump in there and let us know what you're thinking. So, first things first, my name is Steven Toro. I have about a decade of property management experience, everything from leasing agent and property manager, everything in between. So I'm happy to share some marketing tips that I have, really. This is geared more towards first time investors, first time property buyers who are buying apartment homes. But if you're on the corporate side of things, you might find this useful too. So stick around, and I hope you will get something useful out of this. It's so funny. I'm so used to doing YouTube videos. That I feel like I have to like talk fast, but we have a little time. So anyway, thanks for being here. So let's get right into it. Oh, and any links that you see here in the webinar, all the links that I share here will be made public so you can use them too. Basically, this will be your master's degree in multifamily marketing in less than an hour. So let's roll on into it, shall we? All right. So first things first, the basics. What is marketing? Marketing is identifying the wants and needs of your customer and catering to them. So, I mean, goes without saying, but I'm going to take you guys on a little journey, a little arc, if you will. So just go with me on this. So it's so important to just identify the needs of your customer. But how do you do that? It's such an easy thing to say, right? And people are like, well, you have to identify the needs, but you have to dig. And it's identifying the needs of a market is not quite the same as finding the needs of an individual, right? You can't just ask a question. You have to dig for data. And that's what we're going to get into today. So you data nerds, you might like this. Once I get my screen right. Okay. So a way we can dig for data is obtaining demographics. And demographics are basically statistical data relating to the population or particular groups within it. It can be really anything. It could be race. It could be average income, how many people have dogs, stuff like that. You can find this information in your schools, your workplace, but you definitely want to find this information about your potential renters because that's the entire reason you're investing, right? So why are demographics important? Demographics tell you the basics about your marketing needs. So, for example, like the example on the screen, if you have a low income job market in the area, then more affordable housing is needed, and vice versa. If it's a high income area, then it would need wouldn't need, but you could benefit from building a luxury property. So yeah, this is a great example of information you would need for your demographics. Average income, which equates to your spending power. I think that's something investors sometimes overlook is average income of a certain area or negative or positive rent growth are not things they look at. They're just looking at the micro, which is I spent X amount on a property and I expect X return, which in the right area, in the right neighborhood, people with the right income may be doable. However, if you want to have an investment property or apartment building that lasts a test of time, you have to do a little digging before you just invest cash. For example, are there schools nearby? Perhaps you want to purchase a property that has 2 and 3 bedroom apartment homes. And these families are going to be there for a while as their kids go to school in the area. So that's definitely, stable income for you. And you want to look at industries nearby. And as I mentioned before, underserved or overserved populations, this is where your opportunity will lie. This is the problem you're solving as a person selling a product. So who is underserved? I don't mean underserved as poor. I mean underserved as from a marketing standpoint. What segment of the population is there not product for is what I mean by underserved. So this could be low income people. Maybe there's not enough affordable housing, but maybe there's not enough housing let me rephrase. Maybe there is more opportunity for money to be made with building luxury properties. And this is something you want to identify with whatever neighborhood you're choosing to buy in. Are you solving a problem? Because that's a when you solve a problem, that's when people buy the product, apartment or not. All right, moving on. I love this part. Psychographics. I was a psychology major in college, so right up my alley. And why? What is it, and why is it important? So, psychographics is basically demographics of a large portion of the population, but you take a small subset of the demographics and look at particular people and examples of people that you want living at your property. So it can be a person's lifestyle, personality, social class, habits, beliefs, behaviors, and interests. So all of this is taking it a step further than demographics, but also the behaviors of the ideal person you're trying to rent to or solve the problem for. Their problem being, I need housing or want housing with XYZ amenities or what have you. When you know psychographics, you can create a buyer persona. This is basically what your ideal renter looks like on paper, and what they do for a living. You have this idea of what your ideal renter or ideal buyer looks like. And it's super important to keep that in mind. So this is, glad I took neuropsych because this came in handy. Your buyer persona is your buyer homunculus. A homunculus is this like very ugly creature, as you see. It's this humanoid creature that represents how much of your body needs attention from your brain, essentially. So your hands have a lot of nerve endings, your tongue has a lot of nerve endings. So it's represented by the size of the appendage, if you will, or body part. So all that to say, hold on. You have a buyer homunculus. You have a version of what your ideal buyer looks like. Think of this person in your head. You can draw them on paper if you are so talented in that way. This is who you're catering to. Make up this fictional character in your head. What do they like to do? Does your ideal renter have an active lifestyle? Are they a little more sedentary? Maybe you're looking more towards catering with people that are older. What exactly do they do for a living? What amenities do you need to highlight? What amenities can you just do without? What do you need to focus on to get prospects to rent or to get your ideal renter to rent? Taking in psychographics, again, habits, lifestyle, interests, beliefs. Make this fictional person up in your head. And again, of course, not every renter is gonna like fit this profile like to a T, but you're solving many families or individuals' different problems in some type of way. All right, so let's move on. Market types. This is a fun one. Actually, before we get into market types, let's get into market surveys. So a market survey is definitely something you want to do if you're just opening or starting your first LLC or business, especially with an apartment building that has a lot of vacancies coming up all the time. So for a market survey, you want to take 6 properties in total, and I'll actually just show you on my screen here. One sec. Let me move this over. Aha. So this is a market survey template I created a couple of years ago while I was a property manager, and this basically has all the information you need. You have, your property's information here in the yellow, and then I like to pick 6 comparables that you can base your pricing off of, or just help guide where you can base your pricing off of. So what I like to do, I like to pick two properties that are a little bit nicer. So I'll put them in comp one, comp two. I'll pick two more properties that aren't as nice as the one you purchase or the one you already own, and I'll put them in three and four. And then I'll pick one that's like way nicer, and then one that's like equal to my property. So that I feel just over time, I think that's kind of, in my opinion, the best way to kind of get a decent sense of pricing, if you're not using like an algorithm. I use this really cool, like, this is like a whole other video. I can do a YouTube video on this if you want, or a webinar on it. I use my own pricing formula. That's super useful um, if you don't have, I'm trying not to say the brand name because I don't want to get sued. If you don't have, the automatic pricing system that you change prices every day, I have a workaround that I just do manually in like a notebook. So anyway, here in this market survey, you have all the information that you need. I don't think there's formulas on this, but awesome. That's supposed to be yellow. So yeah, you have all the information you need to kind of compare yourself to other properties in the area, and you can change this over here to whatever you need. This is more geared towards smaller buildings, so you have things like wall unit AC, stuff like that. But if you want to change this to it more closely relates to like a massive building or a high rise, you can do that too. And if you're doing this market survey, so it asks for like the average rent for, a one bed, one bath here. What I like to do, I just average it out and then average it out there too. So all the way across. And that way you get an average and see if your property is competitive or not when you compare all the amenities and the prices and stuff like that. Cool. So this can leave. Anyway, this will be in the links, so you can definitely download this if you want to. All right, so we moved on to part two, market types. So what kind of markets are there? What's relevant to you creating a product or a building community that meets the needs of certain different market types? And what kind of marketing is relevant to you? It matters. So pricing volatility and ultimately stability of your, there should be an R there, investment are why it's important to know the beast you're dealing with. Essentially getting to know the market. Take a shot for every time I say market. It's important to know the, what's the word I'm looking for? Nuances of your city and why what you do is relevant to your community and your investment. So a good way to kind of put it in its little box to help organize is to identify whether it's in an expansion market, an established market, or a niche market. All right, so the first kind of market we got is an expansion market. I think we've all seen these kind of markets popping up around big cities. They're kind of like in like arts districts and stuff like that. They can even be very commercialized. So they have the most potential for rent growth. I'll give an example of one right after this. But yeah, most potential for rent growth. They have newer buildings, new jobs in the area, which usually means more money in the area, not always. And they're usually close to amenities because, again, they're in big cities typically. Not all the time, though. A lot of the cons are they're by far the most volatile, especially if you've ever worked at a lease up, you know how volatile they can be. They're great, but it's up, it's down. This neighborhood's cool now, that the other neighborhood is cool now. Everyone's giving specials. So some people do the special hop where they'll finish a lease somewhere, get a special at a new building, then get a special at a new building the following year. We've all seen it. But sometimes they may not be in the best neighborhoods, and the area's identity is not typically established. It's always like it's expanding into something new, right? It's creating an identity on its own. So what is it? What is it about? So there's no one particular customer that fits the homunculus of what the area's ideal renter looks like. South Park, downtown Los Angeles, for example. So I used to work in downtown Los Angeles for a very, very long time. Okay, not very long time. I'm not that old, but yeah. So I didn't work in South Park. I worked where you see the larger buildings there, more at like high rises and stuff. But South Park, if you don't know, is basically this area of downtown LA. It's all new. It is all new. It was just basically warehouses before, and now it's just new apartment buildings. But something that a lot of the downtown LA people say about South Park is that kind of what I said already. It just didn't. It feels new. Like it doesn't have a character or a soul. They're trying really hard. But anyway, all that to say, it's a great opportunity as an investor to create some kind of community marketing campaign, something people in this area can relate to that'll draw them into your community and into your investment. That something about your investment that'll make them want to buy in to whatever you're selling. It doesn't have to be like super deep, like kumbaya stuff, like, oh my God, but as simple as having a front desk that's always available to them, something that solves a problem for them, especially in a big city like LA, where things can sometimes be impersonal. Just big cities can just be like that. Having a front desk makes a huge difference, especially in an area like downtown LA. Huge. But even for smaller buildings, a gated, not even gated, not gated, but like controlled access entry, fob, like that's a huge deal. And a lot of people overlook stuff like that. Just basic security measures. So I try to identify where the areas for opportunity lie in your particular investment in your property, expansion markets, or expanding markets, emerging markets, if you will, can be particularly challenging because the wants and needs of renters. There is no history of wants and needs of renters because it's brand new. So always something to keep in mind, but always super fun and challenging, which I love. Brooklyn, New York is another one. Over the past, I would say 5+ years, has had a huge emergence in new buildings similar to South Park and downtown LA. And it's seen exponential growth in a very relatively short amount of time. It's like the hip new place to hang out. I'm sure you guys all know, especially if in your 20s. Can't relate, but yeah, same thing as South Park, downtown LA. It's just it's when you have new renters, it changes the neighborhood essentially and changes the businesses. And it's kind of symbiotic, really. You change the businesses in the area, the rental housing market changes. Change the rental housing market, businesses in the area change to essentially accommodate those people. Very broad terms there, but you know what I mean. So the second kind of market we have is an established market. So some of the pros, this could be like a suburban area, renters with steady income, established picture of the buyer or that homunculus we talked about. There is just a good old person you can pick out of random probably that will suffice as a poster child for who rents in this market. And there's lower market volatility. People are looking for stability. You take Pembroke Pines, Florida, for example, super stable, even during the pandemic. Some cons, though, lower market volatility. And some of the cons are it's slow paced, which may be a pro to you. And there's low room for rent growth. People aren't rushing in and out of established markets like they do in cities. Like during the pandemic, you should have seen downtown LA. I was there for it. People just literally just up and left the city because remote work, pandemic. So there was Um, a lot of back and forth with that. So, an example of this kind of market would be in West Palm Beach, Florida, very near my hometown. I'm from Miami, but this market is not nearly as volatile as Miami or Fort Lauderdale. So it's established. It has its people that have been living there long term and people that come seasonal, like snowbirds, stuff like that. Even though occupancy may not be stable with um, snowbirds coming in and out, but it's predictable. And that's the same thing that you'll find in Destin, Florida. Also, a huge vacation spot, but it's established. So they offer short-term leases, stuff like that. So occupancy rates, fluctuate up and down, but it's stable, and people can account for things like this and know well before having an investment property in a place like West Palm Beach or Destin that there's going to be fluctuations in it's seasonal when their income comes in for investment properties and stuff like that. All right, and now we got the niche markets. So a niche market is, those markets you see around big cities, or neighborhoods, should I say. They're like super artsy and like cool and like, we all have one in our city. Pick a city, it's got it. It has a niche market. Doesn't always have to be artsy cities. It could be like a surf town, for example, like Key West even. Super surfy. If you can't tell from Florida with all my Florida references, but I lived in California for 5.5 years. Anyway, so niche markets. What are some pros about them? So they have an established community culture. So there's already a market community there. All you have to do is tap into it. You don't have to create one like you would in an emerging or expanding market. It's already there. So you already know what these people are looking for. So these buyers are all around. And there's a high potential for rent growth as, again, they're usually in cities. So, and people, depending on how cool the area is, will flock in and, uh, you know, uh, rent will grow. The cons is with anything trendy, there is high turnover. This is a niche market is kind of like the H&M of apartment buildings, if you will. It's just very volatile, high volatility, and they may not be in the best neighborhoods. Like here in Miami, Wynwood was 10 years ago. Like here in Miami, for example, there's an area called Wynwood, which is like super cool and trendy. But when I was in high school, it was like not a good area. You did not want to be there, but now it's like super cool and everybody's moving there. So it's a really high potential for rent growth. Ooh. And Oakland, I had to give California a shout out because I lived there. So Oakland is a really cool example of a niche market because they're like basically their draw is that they're not San Francisco. Like, no, we're across the bay. We do things a little bit differently. And it's kind of true. I've been to both places. I really love those areas. Anybody else been to California? Oakland, San Francisco, LA. I used to live in LA for 5 years. So you can use niche markets, expanding markets, or established markets to determine the needs of what your potential renter needs in their home or what they're potentially looking for in the area and ultimately what you are able to charge. So some markets, some neighborhoods, if you're actually taking a shot for every time I say market, you must be plastered. I'm coming over. But some are clear cut. Some are clearly this kind of market. Some are clearly niche, but others may have aspects of all three types. And you definitely want to consider that when creating a marketing plan for your property. A cool way to do this, create an outline of things that are particular to your market. You'll find that you'll see things from all three kinds of markets. I think that was like 6 times in 1 minute. Cool. All right. All right, so we're moving on to part 3, and we got marketing tools. If you're an investor, a first-time buyer of a property, you're gonna need some marketing tools. I know Craigslist is free, and so is Facebook, but we're gonna have to do a little digging. Okay, we're gonna have to get scientific on how we are marketing our properties. We need another word for marketing. I'm gonna call it blue. No, I'm not. All right. All right. So something I actually used to use is reputation.com. And it's really cool because you can keep track of people's sentiments over time. Um, by sentiments, I mean like what people are posting online, reviews, stuff like that. You can respond to reviews. You can remove fake reviews like trolls and look up keywords so you can improve on your marketing strategy. And let's take a look at it real quick. So this one, this shows how Graystar uses reputation.com. I think there's a video somewhere. Maybe it's not this one with the video. But anyway, this is a really good example of how Graystar uses reputation.com to help focus on people, which honestly, like even if you think you're like super smart, like a computer's algorithm just always gets it right. So, and it's also just less work for you. It might cost a little bit, but definitely as you start making money in your investment property, look into things like reputation.com. It makes a huge difference. If you've never used a marketing tool like this before, highly recommend. This is kind of what reputation.com looks like once you log in. Oh, and the article from before about Graystar, I'll have that posted. I'll have that link posted. All right, we're back. So this is what reputation.com looks like. You can see just a general overview of like words people are looking for, how many reviews of each type that you're getting. And it's actually a really cool tool to kind of, what's actually super cool about it is that you can see immediate results about if you're running a new special at the property, if you just got a new upgrade or you're upgrading units, you can see your score go up and stuff like that. And you get immediate feedback on what you're doing right about the property, which, of course, we all love positive feedback, but you have to remember the more positive feedback people are sharing publicly, the more likely strangers are to rent at your place. And you're also building a feed. What's the word I'm looking for? You're also building a pipeline of people, of renters who already know about you because of your good reputation, that are planning to move potentially to your property in the near future. So Quantcast is really cool too. It's basically like Google Trends on steroids. So it uses real-time data, uses real-time keywords people are searching for, and you're able to see how often people are searching for these keywords, like granite countertops, apartments in LA, apartments in what's not LA, Austin, Texas, apartments anywhere. And it beats, again, like I said earlier, it beats using or manually adjusting parameters that a computer algorithm does for you. So we'll take a look at it real quick. I think this one is the video. Yes.
This is Alex, a marketer like you who recognizes the potential of the open internet. And this is future Alex, who also advertises on the open internet, but with wildly different results. Why is that? Alex is stuck with third-party data that is weeks old. Future Alex uses real-time data from a diverse data source to get a unique view into ever-changing consumer behavior. Alex creates a detailed audience on a planning tool, but activates it in a different platform using data from disparate sources, leading to inaccuracies and poor results. Future Alex plans custom audiences using keywords, compares them, and activates them with a single click. Alex spends too much time tweaking parameters only to get mixed results. For insights, Alex has to export data and create pivot tables and visualizations. Future Alex simply picks the objective and lets the AI engine adjust thousands of parameters to automatically drive the best outcome for every ad. And what does Future Alex do with all that extra time? Dives into audience psychographics to understand consumer behavior, analyzes campaigns with intuitive visualizations, and experiments with audiences and creatives. Alex, it's time to embrace your future today. Plan, activate, measure, and innovate with just a few clicks using the Quantcast platform to deliver effective advertising at scale. Quantcast.
So that gives you a pretty good idea of what they do. You can reach so many more people with certain keywords that you want to target, certain audiences with certain habits. For example, if your property is near gyms or like a mountain to hike, put in those kind of keywords and you'll find people who are interested in living in places like that. And put your ads, your property in front of them. This is an example of what Quantcast looks like. It kind of gives you a composition of everybody that's looking at your ads, what they're searching for, stuff like that. It's a really easy interface to use. Highly recommend if you want to delve more into the psychographics, keyword of the day, of your target renters. Google Trends. This one, I'm like a pro at this one. But anyway, this is Quantcast, but like not as intense. So it's the most cost effective because why? It's free and you can filter by region or area. Also uses keywords, but does not provide as much detail. And it's still a useful tool to supplement your marketing efforts. Yeah. Not yet. Geofencing. Have you guys ever used geofencing? If you haven't, highly recommend. This is like the future of marketing. I just went full Miami there. This is like, I was basically pretty shook when I learned about this, that you can like draw maps around certain areas. And I'll leave some links for you guys in this webinar where you can download some good geofencing stuff. It's not free, but definitely worth it. And it's actually the most cost effective. So these are examples of areas you could geofence in this like park area. This is really more to show you guys like how you geofence. So there are different colors here because when people walk, say this is a walking path here. Once people walk through this blue area, action will be triggered like on their phone or whatever mobile device they're on, where you know how you see Facebook ads with like things that are nearby you. Geofencing. This will trigger one event and then the orange will trigger another event, such as an Instagram ad or a different ad altogether. When I was working in student housing, we did it at bus stops because a lot of students took the bus and we wanted them to live in our apartment building. So we drew a little geo fence there. Things to love about geofencing. What I love about geofencing, it's concentrated marketing in a really particular area. You get higher conversion, more people who see the ads become renters because they're seen by your target audience directly. And it's really cost effective as you can customize how large the target area is versus, having a marketing campaign is just kind of like everywhere in the city or something like that. You can actually specify where, when, how often you can use this geofence. You can use the marketing campaign in a geofenced area. It's pretty cool. It's not as hard as it sounds. Like this sounds like super. When I first heard about it, it sounded super techy to me. I'm like, look, guys, but no, it's actually pretty cool. If you ever played The Sims, same feeling. Okay. Already talked about that. And Here's something that like I was like mind blown about, and I actually learned this when I was working in student housing. My water just fell. Hold, please. All right, just checking our time real quick, making sure we're good. All right, so leveraging social media. I actually learned about this part when, which I was shooketh by the way, that like the social media sites are basically grouped into age brackets by like marketing companies, and it's kind of true. Um, Facebook is like more of a Gen X kind of thing, so you're 40s and above, well not above, but that range. Um, Millennials were more on Instagram, TikTok, Gen Z. So depending on where or who your audience, your potential renters are, is what platform you want to um, advertise on. Like if you're, I don't know, if you're like an older person who's like buying an investment property in student housing market, then you definitely want to advertise on TikTok. You might have to do some weird dances. I'm not saying you won't have to, but it's a good way to get attention to your potential student housing property, for example. And of course, millennials, we like the food pics. Like, here's my avocado toast in my new apartment, like stuff like that. And then Gen X on Facebook, they like reading paragraphs, talk about and looking at a picture, talk about why your property is great. Here's a picture of the property. Kind of more lickety split, more literal. Once I get this right, okay, cool. So if you're planning to scale up your marketing expenditure, or anticipate you'll make a lot more, or anticipate you'll have a lot more cash flow in the next few months with your new property, then you want to consider places like Zillow, apartments.com, Apartment Guide, Trulia. They do charge a fee. However, you can always start in something like Zillow. Apartments.com, I think, is typically the most expensive. With Trulia, try Zillow. You're only going to get people who are looking to pay for an apartment. Essentially, for example, what I mean is like on Craigslist, you get people looking for the cheapest thing possible, right? So you're going to do a lot of haggling and dealing with maybe some shady people on Craigslist. They're not all shady. I've been on Craigslist, but so yeah, Zillow is a great start. Apartment Guide. I used to have like Apartment Guide magazines before they had a website back in the day. I'm giving away my age here, but yeah. Anyway, great places to put your apartment up for rent. Any questions, guys, on anything we've covered so far? We're not done yet. Don't get too excited. But yeah, just drop it in the chat and I'll try to answer at the very end, or Mo or Maria will answer for you in the chat. Scaling up. So now that we've identified our target market, identified what kind of market we are, and have more or less figured out how to attract leads by geofencing and other kind of keyword-based search engines, we can move on into scaling up our business. So how do we do that? It's a great question. You need software. As a small landlord, it might work not having software if you just own one home or two. Not to say it's uncomplicated, but once you start scaling up in business, things become more complicated. If you own multiple single family homes, or you own one apartment building with 50 units, things can get complicated. So you definitely want to ditch the Excel at this point. Maybe keep it on the side for a little, help. But you're definitely going to want a software to keep track of your leads, keep track of your leases, create leases, maintenance management, and accounting tools, of course. I'm looking down a lot because I have the PowerPoint right under the camera. Yeah. If you want to scale up and stay organized, you need a property management software that keeps track of your leads and all your communications in one place. Softwares like AppFolio, Yardi, Entrata, DoorLoop, all great places to handle your traffic and stay completely organized. You're going to want this and learn how to do it before your property gets very busy. This is super important. You're going to want to keep track of how often your leads or prospects are contacted, when their last contact was, any notes, such as they have a cat or stuff like that, they want to notate are super important. And here is actually a video by my colleague, Sydney, that she kind of breaks it down for you. And it's a great video. Highly suggest you watch. This will be in the links as well. We'll watch a little bit here.
Ever tried listening to an audiobook while listening in on a meeting and answering a complex math question at the same time? Maybe not, but if you've managed properties for a while, you know that it can sometimes feel like that. Whether you're managing by yourself or even with a team, it's a lot to handle. Even worse, if those systems aren't connected and able to communicate with one another, everything works inefficiently. Fortunately, I have a solution for you in this video. Today I'm going to be comparing the top 10 best multifamily property management softwares of 2022. But first, what does property management software do for you? Well, they can do a lot. They can allow you to centralize communication with tenants into one place, manage all your accounting with features that are custom built for property management, streamline the screening and leasing process with tenants, and simplified maintenance management with a central location to track jobs, assign to vendors, and communicate with tenants.
So you basically kind of get an idea of what the video is about. I highly recommend. Sydney is also great in explaining all this stuff. So definitely give the video a look if you're interested in getting a property management software. Now let's get back to the presentation. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So part of scaling up, and I love this analogy, is setting your product apart from something that it's average. For example, this is a Toyota Avalon, a nice enough car, not cheap either, but you can probably squeeze a few more pennies out of it. And that's where you get the Lexus ES 350 for $50,000. This is, for my car people, you already know this, but this is the same vehicle. They're both made by Toyota. They both share a lot of the same components. But what's the difference? The difference is the value proposition of the Lexus. What are you getting that's so different from Toyota? Not a whole lot is the key. And that's why their return on investment is so high. It's not very different, but different enough to make you want to spend that extra $15,000. So they have a lot of the same features. Dare I say, the Avalon actually has a feature that the ES doesn't. For the record, I have an ES and my back seats don't fold down, but they do in the Avalon. Kind of bitter about that, but you know. So how are you going to make the more expensive car that's essentially the same more attractive to a potential buyer or your renter in this case? So you have to remember, people who spend more money look at details and they don't miss out on the details. So in the Lexus, you're going to get like soft touch materials. You're going to get a steering wheel that comes out to you when you turn on the car. Not necessities, but people notice these things. So, and these are things you wouldn't get in a regular Toyota. So people who are spending money are looking at these things. So the way this relates to you and your property is, you know, spend money on not a lot of money, just a little bit a little bit for a lot of return on your investment. For example, your light switch covers, your outlet covers, your knobs, your stuff like that. People notice. And they might be willing to spend an extra little bit for a place that they like. Ooh, this is where it gets real fun. So, do you need an on-site property staff? You can always finagle this question for the answer to be no, right? You don't need, and that's like my catchphrase. I'm like, you don't need anything. But it would be nice if. Not only would it be nice, but maybe not only would it be nice, but once you delegate a task to someone who's hired to do it, once you scale up enough where you can afford to do this kind of thing, or even just have one manager, you're going to see how your life is a lot easier eventually. Do you need a leasing agent or an assistant manager? A leasing agent, like the name suggests, leases apartments for you. And honestly, if you're going to hire anyone, it would probably be a leasing agent as your first thing. That's just my opinion. Because you want a salesperson, you want an income generating employee versus a manager. If the property is small enough, I would say 50 to like 60 units is like the sweet spot for just having a leasing agent and not a manager. You would act as a manager potentially. And remember, your property is a brand. So how is it different from your next door neighbor? Keep that in mind when you're trying to attract your potential buyer, or keep in mind the homunculus we talked about, what your potential buyer or renter looks like when you're trying to differentiate yourself from your next door neighbor. Because it's so easy for a renter just to walk right past your property and not even notice it if you can't stand out. So thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you, got some useful information out of this. Sorry. But I'll do this again very shortly. I'll have guests too, and I hope to see you very, very soon. All the links and everything I shared during this presentation will be here. So, and we'll respond to you in the chat, all that good stuff. So I will see you guys very shortly. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at DoorLoop, where I post videos on there, and on TikTok, millennial here, at the DoorLoop, at DoorLoop app, and on Instagram at DoorLoop. So I hope to see you guys there, and we'll chat very soon about another fun topic. Bye, guys.